We're going to turn now to the clear evidence. Classified information was shared in a Signal group chat with journalist Jeffrey Goldberg. Despite that, President Trump and his administration remain defiant about the incident. Yesterday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and most members of Trump's team dismissed wrongdoing or downplayed the seriousness of what was shared.
I noticed this morning out came something that doesn't look like war plans. And as a matter of fact, they even changed the title to attack plans because they know it's not war plans. There's no units, no locations, no routes, no flight paths, no sources, no methods, no classified information. My job, as it said atop of that, everybody's seen it now, team update, is to provide updates in real time. General updates in real time, keep everybody informed. That's what I did. That's my job.
There was no classified information transmitted. There were no war plans discussed. Why did The Atlantic downgrade their allegation about war plans to attack plans? They're now playing word games because they know this was sensationalist spin from a reporter who is well known for doing this. We have said all along no war plans were discussed, no classified material was sent. You have the Secretary of Defense saying that. You have the director of the CIA, the director of National Intelligence, the FBI director, all testifying to that under oath, and they should be trusted with that.
The conversation was candid and sensitive, but as the President National Security Advisor stated, no classified information was shared. There were no sources, methods, locations, or war plans that were shared. This was a standard update to the National Security Cabinet that was provided alongside updates that were given to foreign partners in the region.
Well, yeah, Mike Waltz, I guess he said he claimed responsibility, I would imagine. Had nothing to do with anyone else. It was Mike, I guess. I don't know. I was told it was Mike. But again, the attacks were unbelievably successful, and that's ultimately what you should be talking about, I think. No, Mike did. He took responsibility for it. Hegseth is doing a great job. He had nothing to do with this. Hegseth. How do you bring Hegseth into it? He had nothing to do. Look, it's all a witch hunt. Here we are talking about some of the greatest business deals ever made. The greatest companies in the world are moving into the United States, and you want to ask about whether or not Signal works. I don't know that Signal works. I think Signal could be defective, to be honest with you. And I think that's what we have to, because you use Signal, and we use Signal, and everybody uses Signal, but it could be a defective platform, and we're going to have to find that out.
Someone made a big mistake and added a journalist. Nothing against journalists, but you ain't supposed to be on that thing. I've been assured by the Pentagon and everyone involved that none of the information that was on there, though not intended to be divulged, obviously that was a mistake and that shouldn't have happened, and the White House is looking at it, but that none of the information on there at any point threatened the operation of the lives of our servicemen.
Joining us now, Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. He's a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, thanks for coming back. You're already shaking your head as you listened to some of the spinning, the excuses. Signal doesn't work. The Secretary of Defense suggesting that this was not a war plan. An attack plan is what we saw. It's on the front page of the New York Times this morning, which, as many analysts, including General Herdling, told us yesterday, an attack plan is much more specific than a war plan, giving dates, times, targets. So what do you make of the, not just the handling of what we've seen over the last couple of days, where you have even people in the MAGA media universe saying, guys, just say we made a mistake and move on, but they seem to want this to continue. But what are the national security implications of this? What are our allies thinking?
This is so embarrassing. It makes America look so weak in the world. Everyone knows what happened here. It was a massive mistake. It was likely illegal, potentially criminal. Own up to it, fess up to it, move on. This probably could have been a one-day story if they had just admitted they made a mistake. They had pledged to make it better. They said they wouldn't use Signal any longer for transmitting classified information. But instead, as usual, it's the cover-up that becomes the story. I mean, it's really three scandals in one. One is the incompetence. And, by the way, Pete Hegseth wasn't covered in glory before this scandal. He's mismanaged almost everything he has touched. He's made America look weaker in the world since the minute he divulged America's negotiating bottom lines on Ukraine before we ever sat down at the negotiating table. It's a scandal because they basically are saying they're going to continue doing this. They haven't pledged to take their communications off signal. And so they're basically telegraphing that they're going to continue to act illegally. And then the biggest scandal is really the scandal of the obliteration of objective truth, right? A democracy can't work if there aren't some facts on the ground that we agree on. Now, we're going to disagree on how to solve problems or how to interpret facts, but they're sitting there telling the American people that 2 + 2 = 7, that black is white. Those were attack plans. Those were war plans. That was classified information. Everybody knows it. And the idea that they think they can get away with this level of gaslighting, it just strikes at the foundation of democracy, which is a set of truths that we all have to operate off of.
So, Senator Murphy, you said a few minutes ago if they had dealt with it in one day, honestly, that it would have been put behind them. But they didn't, obviously. So now what we have is we have a Secretary of Defense and the Vice President of the United States basically saying, they dislike Europe. Europe is a bunch of freeloaders and we should stay away from Europe. And we have the Secretary of Defense, in his own verbal defense, sounds as if he's speaking on a Fox cable talk show rather than addressing the reality of his own obligation to admit to what's happened. What do we do? Where do we go from here?
Well, I mean, listen, I was glad to hear one of my Republican colleagues in the Senate, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, say there's got to be an independent investigation. That's good. But this is criminal behavior, right? They likely violated multiple laws, the Espionage Act, the Presidential Records Act. And so there has to be criminal investigations as well here. I mean, if the criminal code doesn't apply to powerful people, it only applies to people without power, then we don't have rule of law in this country. And so you're seeing the unfolding scandals of this administration start to overlap, right? When the Department of Justice has been turned into, as it has been, just a political arm of the White House, this is what happens. People in power believe that they can get away with crimes and telegraph to the American people that they're going to continue doing it while the law continues to apply to everybody else. So we have to have a larger conversation right now in this country, not just about this discrete scandal, but about how the rule of law doesn't seem to be working in this country as it applies to the people that are close to Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, we'll be following this and also the concern that there are other group chats like this out there. And also, it'll be interesting to see, as Jeffrey Goldberg stated, what the American people think of this, especially those with loved ones who are serving in the military. So a lot of different angles to this.